And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. I have my good friend Bob with me from Static Radio. He joined me last time for the review for Fright Night. We had a great time doing it. So now we're doing episode 1 of Dune Prophecy, season 1. So let's go on ahead. Let's talk about Dune Prophecy. And hey, Bob, welcome back to the show. I just want to tell you, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Yeah, we couldn't get a more different thing to watch than Fright Night.
Exactly. So we decided to go with a little bit of sci-fi, mixing in with a little bit of fantasy, with that kind of element.
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly. It's all kinds of good genres mixed together.
for sure, man, here's the thing. I'm a huge fan of Dune 1 and also Dune 2. And I wasn't sure if this was actually going to be something that I was going to like or not, because I know the director is not attached to this or anything like that. So I was kind of a little bit frightful of it because of the fact that, at least with Matt Reeves with the Penguin, at least, you have Matt Reeves' thumbprints on there in some kind of
Yeah,
capacity. With this,
yeah,
I wasn't sure.
yeah. So yeah, no Denis Villeneuve, right, on this one.
Right.
So, and I mean, as far as I know, he had nothing to do with it, right? This is a totally
Right.
separate kind of deal from the movies. And so, yeah, I mean, you didn't know what you're going to get, but it looks like Dune.
It does. It really does. I really am. I think that this actually enhances the experience of Dune, especially with the political stuff within the universe itself. I really love the religion stuff, the political stuff around it. I thought it was a great introduction into this world, which is like 10,148 years before
Yeah, where did
Atreides.
they get that number at, right? Let's go 10,148 years. It's like, could you have picked another number? I don't know. Yeah, but I
Right.
mean, it looks like the world. I mean, if you really squint, it's not quite as glossy and cinematic as the Dune movies, but they obviously had a good budget and they have a really good set design, and they carry through 10,000 years ago, it wasn't quite as nice. So that's
No, it
okay.
wasn't. And the thing that I really liked about this was, it's where the machines are actually taking over at the very start of it. It has like this Terminator one kind of vibe to it,
Hmm.
where basically it's human versus machines. And I love that whole entire concept of it.
Oh yeah, the beginning of this episode moves. I mean, it moves. I was expecting it to be a little slower paced at the beginning for some reason. I thought, they'll ease us into this kind of situation, but I mean, it sprinted. It got you through a lot of setup to get you into what the kind of the meat of the show was going to be, and took you through that whole. I got the Terminator vibes as well, and they even kind of in a way mimicked in some of those wide shots where they're kind of fighting the machines, kind of looked a little bit like Terminator. Obviously, Terminator's what, 84, so it's been
Right.
a while ago, so it looks a little different, but it kind of gives you that vibe.
For sure. And then you also have the other thing too, where, it opens up to the fact that it captures the traditions of what one is to believe is the right way, while others also wants to break away from the tradition and the religion of what one of the characters winds up discovering, because
Right.
the ancestor's like, okay, promise me on my deathbed that you keep the traditions the way that I laid them out before everybody.
Hmm.
So you have this one character that actually cares about the traditions, cares about the religion, while the other character wants to destroy it and basically do away with the traditions and the religion of it and the politics
Hmm.
of it, which I thought
Right.
was
Yeah.
really fascinating.
Well, and I mean, it gets into other areas too, where they talk about the DNA and it really is much more complex. It kind of gives you, since they're not really calling themselves the Bene Gesserit or whatever at this point, but in the movies it kind of gives you a deep backstory to why these folks were acting the way they were in the movies, because they really were kind of mysterious. They called them witches and called them this and that, but they really weren't super defined for the movies. Really, they were kind of left a little vague. And so obviously
Right.
this show is going to get into all that, but I mean, it jumped right in with both feet at the beginning. So you don't get that all the time, you know? A lot of times the shows kind of pace themselves a little too much sometimes, I think.
I think so too. I think it knew what it wanted to be and knew the audience that it wanted to target. Because I feel like this: if you're not a fan of the Dune series, of Dune 1 or 2, you're not going to like the show if you find those
No.
two boring. This is for the people who love Dune and love the fantasy and sci-fi aspect of it, and that's who it's for. And it's geared towards me, it's geared towards you, and I love it. And then usually with time jumps, right? Because we have that happen in House of the Dragon recently,
Mm-hmm.
in season 1 with the time jumps. So it goes into being the young woman, and then it winds up showing us 30 years later, which is also 116 years of the Great Machine Wars
Mm-hmm.
as
Yeah.
well. So you have two different timelines within one universe and one episode.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I think they managed it really well. I mean, it wasn't confusing or anything. I mean, sometimes they can, do these jump arounds, flashback, flash forward so much that you get kind of lost in it. But I think they did a really good job keeping it together. And I would say you'd mentioned House of Dragons. So if you are a person who likes Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, and so forth, even if you aren't, so much into the Dune aspect of things, this has elements of that. I mean, very much so. I mean, it's very steeped in these kind of, hierarchical traditions and people, right? The Duke
Right.
and the Baron and all these people that you see in the movie much later. Different people, obviously, their lineage, but you have this kind of royalty lineage happening, and you get to kind of see how things unfold and how you know the sisterhood tries to guide that.
Right. And that's something I really liked was the fact that it sets up all the houses like you mentioned. Then
Mm-hmm.
you have this one person on the throne, just like in Game of Thrones. So you've had that happening. Then you also even have the princess who's engaged to a 8-year-old in
Right.
this as well. So yeah, it's very Game of Thrones-esque, if you will.
Right.
But
It's
I
not
really enjoy it.
mimicking it, but it's got elements, right? So
Right.
it's just, I mean, if somebody was into, British history or something, you have all the same kind of things that happen for real, right? In British history and in French history and so forth. And it pulls those elements just like Game of Thrones does and brings them up and puts them at play, right? It's the politics, the chess of politics, right? Where they're all
Right.
jockeying for position. What I found really interesting, and I was kind of a little bit, I didn't expect this, I guess what I put it, is they do, the spice is already prominent.
Right. That's something I really liked was it's actually its main thing as far as the spice goes, and that's what everybody's after.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
like that it's there.
It, so that, I mean, it gives you, if you think about the timeline for the movies, and Paul Atreides and everything, it gives you this. I mean, the history is just extremely deep when you think about that, because it's like they talk about that in the other movies, have been doing this for so long, but now you're jumping back and you're like, oh my gosh, this has been going on forever. The spice trade and who controls the spice and so forth. And so it really deepens, and broadens kind of the world of the movies as well with
For
this.
sure. The whole lore. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, which is it just fascinating to me because you know if you go all the way back to the '84 Dune, they talk about the spice as if they don't understand it fully, but obviously in the newer one there's a lot more understanding, and then this shows you that everybody they know what this is does at this point. They haven't talked
Right.
about time jumps and things, but as far as the spice and being valuable, it's already established.
Right. And there's also something else I want to mention is like the show's narrator, Bela Harkonnen, that she also explains the context of the universe led by the House Atreides. The humans rose up against the thinking machines, and the Harkonnens were branded as cowards and banished to destroy the world, hoping to change the history of lies that are spread by Atreides, and
Right.
and then I just thought that Jessica Barden in her youth, and the fact that she joins the Bene Grayson as a disciple for the first Mother Superior, Raquella, under Raquella, that the Bene have embarked on a quest to bred better leaders using the generic archives. So I thought that was an interesting thing that they do with it.
Yeah,
as
no,
well.
definitely. It's fascinating, and it's fascinating that they have this interchange with the like on his first name, but the Atreides, right, talking to Baron Harkonnen, and he kind of brushes him off. I mean, he's kind of just putting up with him, and it's such a night and day when you think about the movie. And Baron Harkonnen for the movie is this menacing, entity. And here he's like this kind of wimpy guy at the party where he's like, hey, I got enough of you. I want to move on to this next thing. And it really is interesting because we all know this because we've already watched all this, right? So,
Right.
but they, if you think about it from the point of view of the writers for the show, they know that and they're using it to their advantage. And it just makes it all the more interesting to me. And I will note Mark Strong, who plays the emperor or whatever. His performance in the party scene was masterful. I don't know if you noticed because he didn't say too much.
No, he
but
didn't.
His face changed so much as they went through that scene. Where he's and they didn't do the inner dialogue. They did a little bit of inner dialogue, but they didn't do the constant inner dialogue that we've gotten with other of the movies sometimes. And he just goes through that scene, and he's thinking about who's trying to screw him over and what's happening, and his wife is pressuring him, and all these things are happening, and he's trying to keep it all together. And he just, to me, I was watching it and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy, because normally he doesn't, the actor, he usually plays like a bad guy, right, or a good guy. And it's not that level of depth in his performances, I guess I would say. Maybe there's more depth and I wasn't paying attention. But in this one, I was like, oh my gosh, because then they had the little salamander, salamander robot thing, right, that pops out, and he had to handle the situation where it's like that's all a big no at this point to have this technology, but it's his daughter's wedding day to this 8-year-old to set up the. But
I like how the princess plays it off though on that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: I love how the princess plays it off like she's protecting him. And then once they walk off, he goes, listen here, you little shit. If you do that again, I'll kill you myself. I'm like, damn. He's 8-year-old and already getting a lesson learned not to mess with your wife.
That's the politics, right? And that's it's all set up for these people. And so it's like it brings out the core of that person in that scene, really sets a lot of stuff up. It was really, to me, it was incredibly interesting. It could be an easily throwaway kind of a scenario, the wedding, blah, blah, blah. But they turned that all into this kind of high stakes political stuff. I mean,
right.
The groom's dad was kind of a jerk, it's interesting.
Right. Because remember, he's like, he winds up taking the technology away from the kid. And, it gets into this whole entire religion stuff. Though too, it's like, well, we're not supposed to have this kind of technology. It's against our rules. It's against our regulations. And then like you said, Bob, like it goes against their whole entire politics altogether for even him having it. But and he's like, well, F your politics basically because I'm going to have this toy.
Right. Yeah. And then he kind of goes along because he's trying to navigate this whole situation. It's so weird, and he's putting so much faith in his in guidance into the sisterhood that the person's got with it, which I'm blanking on her name right now, but
Uh,
uh
Vela, or are you talking
not
about Tula?
Vela, the other one, yeah.
Tula,
So
yeah,
Hula, yeah. So he puts so much faith in her, right? Because this is the way it's supposed to be. Little does he know, there's something else going on in the background. But he's questioning her. He's questioning the marriage, but he wants to keep it going because he thinks that that's what's supposed to happen. And it really is the conflict in his just in the character is fantastic, and I think he did a great job of portraying that without having to say much, if anything.
exactly. And
And
then
that's great. Yeah.
right, and then like you remember mentioning Emperor Jeff Sesko
Hmm.
as well. Just the whole entire deal of him dealing with everything all at one time, and him just going through the emotions of everything too. His anxiety is up to the point it's like, okay, I gotta please this person, that person, and how do I go on ahead and play the politics of it and also please everybody else at the same time?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's he's walking the tightrope, right? And it played out perfectly. Now you have
Especially,
the. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
sorry. But especially that one part where where the one of the characters said, "Well, bless your gods," and he's
Right.
like, "My wife is the one who believes in the gods. I don't."
Hmm. Right. He kind of plays it off. He's like, yeah, that's on her side, right? That's not on my
Right.
side.
It's like it's cool that
Exactly.
she believes in that or whatever, but I don't. And I like that whole entire deal. It's like, yeah, I'm in front of my wife. I'm gonna go on ahead and act my best, but when I'm with somebody else, I'm not gonna end up saying, "Hey, look, this is what I believe in," because it's not something I believe in.
Hmm. Right. Exactly. So yeah, he kind of played him off and told him what he was thinking a bit. So yeah, it was interesting though. And then you have this kind of the spoiler of things is Desmond Hart, which is played by Travis Fimmel, and I think he did a good job as well. But unfortunately, Travis Fimmel he's playing a character that he's played many times before. I think in this where he's kind of the bad guy of sorts, misunderstood. Let's put him that way. He's very misunderstood, and that's the kind of character he plays. And he's played in other things. I don't know if you saw. He was in a show called Raised by Wolves.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay. I know the character you're talking about. Yeah, you're talking
yeah.
about the Desmond Hart character.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He was in that show called Raised by, which I love, but they canceled it quickly. But he plays a very similar character that he played in that show a little bit. I mean, he was good to a point, and then he was kind of bad. Right now, I think we're undecided. I mean, I don't know if it's spoilers or not, but he does a few
Yeah.
things in the episode that could be construed as not being very nice.
No,
To
especially what he does to the 8-year-old, and then what he
Yeah.
does to the other person in this. This is going to be a non-spoiler review since the premiere was last night.
Right.
Um, and now it was like during the middle of the week. I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll do spoilers. But with this, we're just going to jump into just minor spoilers here and there, but not the major.
Yeah. But
But yeah,
but yeah, I mean, and he has his point of view, and he's trying to bring that to the emperor and trying to tell him, hey, things aren't the way you think. And so that's just he's being pulled in so many directions, the emperor, and all these characters are trying to gain favor and trying to get their point of view in his head. And it is fascinating. I think they did a really, really good job of demonstrating that with this episode. And I hope they can keep it up. I mean, this is just the first episode. And then you
right.
get into Valia Harkonnen, and she is, very determined and kind of moving things in the background. And the other thing that I was shocked by is she does the weirding voice, right?
Right.
And she's the only character that does.
Right. That made it kind of unusual, though, right? I mean, it was
Yeah.
something that we haven't seen before, especially in the first two Dune movies and stuff like that, because now it's part of that universe that it got established. But now we're seeing the beginnings of that in this,
Yeah.
which I thought
Yeah.
was really interesting.
It was, yeah, I did too. And again, another area that, I mean, I didn't read a lot of stuff before I watched it on purpose. I like kind of go in real blank.
Same.
Other than what I've already got, I don't read specifically about the episodes. And I thought, oh, really? They're going to introduce this, right out of the gate. I was like, wow. Because, those are the kind of things you think they would build to, right? A lot of times you take and you're like, they could make this whole season about spice and
Right.
finding out about spice, but they didn't. They could make the whole season about the weirding voice, but they didn't. And it's interesting.
It really is, but I think it was the whole fact of like, okay, you can only do so many episodes about the spice, or you can do so many episodes with this. It's like, okay, we're going to introduce the spice here, but we're going to also introduce you to these other characters that were the main points of the Dune 1 and 2. But we're also going to keep within continuity of the houses, the political stuff, the religion stuff, and also the sisterhood. Because I think the sisterhood is very interesting, especially when you have these women are very strong and of power who are basically saying, I don't need no man.
Right.
Men lie.
Yeah.
And then I also like the science of it, though, too, of like, why do we lie? Why is it where it basically is a defense mechanism based in our brain to lie? And then the body rejects the lie because of the guilt that they carry with it. So I thought the science of it was very interesting of how she teaches it. And then also, too, the prince is also there for 10 years of training. And then she's also training with her brother, Constantine, I believe, when as well with the swords and stuff. I thought it was really, really interesting on how they play off that narrative, especially with the women also fighting, too.
Right. Yeah. And I was trying to remember, and I don't think that this is anything that carries through into the movies, but I don't know if you noticed that they, the truthsayers, right, they were doing hand signals or some type of hand things. And whenever they were, they were kind of secretly communicating to each other, even though they were, different house aligned, right? And I don't remember that anywhere else. I was like, have I, I was racking my brain. I was like, have I seen that? Were they doing that in either of the movies? But I don't think so. I don't think that this is something that's just part of this world currently. And they were, doing this nonverbal communication with their hands, which I found interesting. And I thought, well, I wonder where they're going to go with that. There's got to be more to it because it was kind of they kind of focused on it a little bit there. So
For sure. But yeah, all in all, I think this is actually a great introduction into what we're getting as far as the rest of the season goes. Because I really love this world. And it feels smaller in scale because we're watching it as a TV show versus how it's laid out in an entire 2-hour movie. But at the same time, though, it also feels kind of big at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think they made it feel much more epic than normally that series do. Obviously they put a lot of money into this. It shows on the screen. And so, yeah, I think it does feel more epic. And they had, all the different places and set pieces and everything. And they didn't over rely on exposition. And I think was important to me because, it is a world, right? So all this, like if you go into Star Wars, what makes it Star Wars is not that it has, Luke Skywalker and Chewbacca in it. There's an aesthetic, and that aesthetic, whenever you see it, you go, that's Star Wars.
Right.
So there's an aesthetic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The aesthetic is actually the planets and the world that other characters live in and they share. And then you also go to another planet and you learn something else. This is exactly the same thing where you actually go into different worlds where you learn about different things as you go on with each character, and also their religion and stuff, and also their politics.
Yeah, and they nailed it. I mean, they have the Dune aesthetic going, and so it works. Even the ships and everything, even though they were different, had the aesthetic. And so it's one of those weird things that I don't know that a lot of people dwell on, right? That's all surface stuff, but it really does make a lot of difference when you're watching it, because then you're immersed in that world when you're watching it, as opposed to being pulled out of it because you see, the Chrysler building or something in the background,
Right.
which is real. I mean, there's nothing like that. It looks nothing like our world.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Now the only kind of negative comment I have, and this is something that I struggle with a lot of science fiction shows, is it's 10,000 years in the past, yet they still got pretty darn good technology. You know what I mean?
Right, but for me, I feel like the technology didn't really change all that much versus how we seen it in the other two Dune movies. I
Right.
just felt like
Yeah.
it was like basically the same technology. So it's like, okay, we're against technology, but at the same time, we're just gonna keep our old shit and forget about anything new. Like we're
Well,
against new, but we'll keep the old.
but I always, because I think about, if you relate it to the real world, as it were, our technology changes drastically. I mean, we didn't have cell phones 30 years ago. Everybody didn't have a cell phone. Now we all do, and all this kind of stuff. Whereas there, 10,000 years, and the technology is fairly steady. You know what I mean?
Right.
No big leaps and jumps. I mean, the ships and so forth have changed and whatnot, but no dramatic things. And so, but that's me, right? That's my head going, in 10,000 years, don't you think they have cooler stuff? I mean, they did the fighting training scene, right?
Right.
And they had the I can't remember what they call those things, but basically they had the shields on, right? They were wearing the things so that they were kind of shielded. You could see the little blue thing, and then it was showing where they were hitting. So it was blue if you're just touching, but it was red if the weapon touched. And
Right.
it was very much like it was in the movies a little bit. And so I'm like, oh, I wonder why did they keep that even, as opposed to downgrading it a bit. And then also watching the playback of the Sandworm and Desmond Hart, which I thought was fantastic the way it looked. But
Yeah.
I also thought, well, it was too cool to be 10,000 years ago. Maybe, I don't know. But I mean,
Exactly.
maybe the pace is different. I guess that you have a point with the saying that it's a different world and they treat technology differently, and we just have to get used to that. And I'm glad they haven't explained it. I like to be in my own head thinking about these things.
Same here. I'm okay if they explain it like in the second episode or whatever, but I like to use my imagination because I'm like, this is too much in deep detail to not think about. And
Right.
I like the fact that they allow us a chance to just speculate and let us slowly digest this first episode and just expand on things that we would normally think about. So that's something I really do appreciate with the first episode coming out of
Yeah.
the gate with this. And I wanted to mention this real quick, if you don't mind. But there's also this other scene that gets played out too, where Princess Jens has one night out with a brother, Desmond,
Mhm.
and I like how he counsels Carano and telling him that he more prominent issues is to growing insurgencies on Arrakis. Reveals that he knows that the marriage is wrong, but must do it to maintain control over Arrakis. Jens and
Mhm.
Atreides flirt and have sex, so they go to a sex club and they wind up doing the deed. But I
Right.
really like the fact that what he's thinking is this is morally wrong, but I know because of the politics within this and everything, we have to let this play out, regardless of
Right.
what we think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that kind of also plays into the whole, royalty aspect of things, right? So
Right. It goes in
Yeah.
with the whole war hidden in plain sight kind of quote that they have though too, applying it as against being Garcid, you know.
Right. Yeah, no, but I mean, I wasn't sure, going into this, could go either way. You're watching it and you're like, this could take a nosedive or this could be good. But I think they really did a excellent job of in a first episode of setting everybody up. You get a kind of a lay of the land and where people are kind of going, and and you want to know the most important thing is you want to know what's next.
Exactly. And that's something that I really have to I'm probably end up watching the next episode because I am invested into this world. I like the first two movies like I mentioned. And I'm just sold on this. I'm sold on this world on a TV aspect. Whenever before I was like, okay, I'm not sure if this is gonna work. The original director's not attached to it. I don't know if this is gonna be smaller in scale, but it also does feel a little bit larger in life because of the different planets, because of the religion stuff, because of the politics that each person's playing. Also, too, the chess pieces that these people are moving and embodying and everything, too. And especially with the backstabbing of the Duke, that's probably going to go down in the next episode.
Right.
God, there's just so much detail within the first episode.
Yeah, it is chock full. I mean, it's so much. I mean, I really probably should watch it again before the next one, just to keep things straight, because it so much happened. It moved so well. That's not always the case with these kind of tentpole series that happen. Sometimes they metered out. I would, when Game of Thrones was really popular, as they got in past the first few seasons, they drug stuff out sometimes. And
right.
I remember watching it, my wife and I watching it, and we're like, well, nothing happened in that episode. I mean, it all looked great, but
right. The cinematography looked great.
Yeah.
But as far as the plot, it didn't really move anything. It was just there
move
for
anybody
filler.
forward. Yeah. And House of Dragons has done that already in the first couple seasons. They trapped him in the castle forever, it seemed like. But anyway, that's a whole other show.
For season 2, which we both basically I call that the side quest part of. But yeah, matter of fact, I actually did a game, the House of the Dragon season 1 and 2 review for the podcast and stuff like that too, that people could check out as well. But yeah, this is but yeah, just like the Penguin, I think this is a fantastic show. I think you guys might actually have a chance to check it out. We'll probably do this again, if you are down to do this again on Monday.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. I think that this hopefully this can keep its momentum. I mean, it's on a high note right now, and the next episode, until we get past a couple, next episode, we'll see if it doesn't take a nosedive. But so far, so good.
So far, so good for starting out. But yeah, I'm okay with filler as long as it moves the plot and as long as it doesn't go into the next couple of episodes.
Right.
Just to have, but yeah, great start. I'm excited for it. But my question for you guys that are watching, are you guys excited for Dune Prophecy episode 2? Tell me in the comments below. Tell us what you think of our thoughts. It doesn't matter what we think, it matters what you guys think. So tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And also, too, if you guys want to geek out with me or nerd out with me and everything, too, just email me at movieloversunite@gmail.com if you guys want to nerd out about some Dune Prophecy, with maybe some of your fan theories and stuff like that coming into it. But right now, I have none. I'm just excited and ecstatic that we even have a TV series for Dune to expand the universe even more. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
I totally agree. And yeah, episode 2. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping it's good.
Me too. So guys, that's going to be it as far as this review goes. But Rossi and I will be back on Wednesday night. We're actually covering a documentary that's out in theaters right now that got released this month. And that's called Chasing Amy, Chasing Amy. It's about the Kevin Smith movie Chasing Amy. And it's about this inspiration. It was basically about this director who found inspiration within the movie Chasing Amy to do a documentary about it. So that's going to be it on Wednesday at 8 o'clock time, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Bob, do you have anything coming out as far as your podcast goes? Anything that you want to actually bring to the table?
Sure. Well, you can always listen. Staticradio.com. We do weekly shows. Last week I talked about Chicago pizza, but not deep dish. Go figure. Who does that exactly?
Right, exactly. But anyways, guys, you guys can follow Bob. I have everything in the description below for you guys to follow him. But yeah, you guys get to see me come back on Wednesday night. We're gonna be doing that. I do have some other stuff planned out. So always until next time, guys, have a great and safe night, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a great night. Bye bye, guys.